Hello, and welcome to the Tell Not Show. I'm Kirsha Fox, author of the Deception and Justice series. I'm a homeschooling mom to four, gamer, and reader. I'm excited that this is our season finale, and our guest is J. Paul Rowe. He spent 15 years as a copywriter and marketing creative, specializing in telling stories, a career that led to a somewhat unorthodox honing of his craft. As a freelancer, he's worked on multiple screenplays, ghostwritten over a dozen books, and created content for some of the largest tech companies in the world. As a novelist, he focuses on tech-centric stories and neo-cyberpunk. Welcome, J. Paul Rowe. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing journey? What got you started and why? What got you started and how's it going?
What got me started was, I would almost say necessity. When I was really young, I started writing to kill time, to have something to do. And I would, so this was probably pre-video game days, because then, EverQuest became the thing that I did to kill time, and it probably set me back. Yeah, probably set me back a decade on what I could have done as a writer. So before I was really into video games, I was into computers, which helped me later in technology. But I would fire up a word processor and just make stuff up, and stream of consciousness, some crazy stories, and sometimes I would animate them with stop motion animation, and I just went on to all these weird creative things, kind of like what I do now, but I didn't have bills to pay, so I should have taken advantage of it more back then. And so I really didn't write a whole lot until I took a long break from writing, I should say, around high school age, and didn't start up again until probably my mid 20s. And I don't even remember why. No, I will credit this to making friends with some people that now are, one of them, Robert Miller's in my writers group now, but he wrote a lot and would talk about it. And it kind of reminded me of, I used to like doing this too. Maybe I should write again. And NaNoWriMo played a role in that, because then we all started participating in that. And then it was just a matter over time. From that point, it was like I realized I was not bad. And so I started freelancing as a copywriter, and I would write all sorts of things. And from that, I was able to quit my job at the time and just copyright full time. Went back to school for marketing, and really I wanted to get into filmmaking, but I ended up going into marketing and just kept writing from there, and eventually landed on a couple years ago saying I really need to actually just start and finish a novel. So I did. That's where it blew up.
That's quite a journey. Yeah, I think a lot of us seek this out as like a creative outlet at first, and then it sort of snowballs as we kind of grow our skills and learn as we go. And then, a lot of people underestimate the influence that your friends have on you, and the friends that will inspire you to grow, or they inspire, the ones who set you back. I think my husband is fond of saying that, like, you're kind of the sum of the six people around you, your closest six friends or so. He probably pulled it from a book he read, but I like to think about that. Are you surrounding yourself with people who encourage you and uplift you, or people who are not?
I actually, I say that same line too. We might have read the same book. A lot of times, if I have friends or people I meet through business that come to me with a lot of problems or drama, and I ask them, like, what kind of people do you hang around with? And then it turns out, well, that's why. Like, you can't expect to keep that kind of company and not have the problems you have. And on the other hand, surrounding myself with other indie authors has helped immensely. Because when I wrote Into the Beanstalk and its sequel, I did it in a very abnormal level of isolation, because my fiance at the time lived out of town for her job. She had to move and was only here on the weekends. And I had all this time to just, if I wanted to, which I did, because I got very obsessive about it, all I did was write, and I was completely left alone with, of course I worked to pay the bills, but I mean, as a consultant, that was a couple hours a day,
Yes.
and every other minute I just wrote and wrote and wrote. But
Mm-hmm.
then I published the second book, and I kind of lost steam, and all my readers know this, and they've been very nicely asking me to finish the third book for a while now, but they may be sick of hearing me tell the stories, but of why it happened that way. But when I went to my first book signing that I'd done, we'll say officially, because I did one about 10 years ago. That was a very small thing with a novella I had self-published. And
Mm-hmm.
this one was actually at an event that Robert Miller, who I previously mentioned, fellow indie author, he put it on locally, and I went largely because it was his event. I wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't even really in my writing aspirations to do in-person events, and I went and had a great time, and I met R.M. Hamrick and um, Jess and other people that are in my writers group now, and we do a lot of events together. But that experience is what really made me want to pick it up and do it more, do it seriously, try to
Mm-hmm.
grow. And so, yeah, if it wasn't for the people and that really serendipitous event that I did, probably would have turned out completely differently.
Yes. Yeah, for me, the book conventions, really the money is like a secondary goal. Like, I go to the book conventions because I am just intoxicated by all the authors around me. And like, it's so inspiring to be in a room with so many people who um, are so helpful and so free with advice. And there's the networking possibilities, and just that you understand each other on a level that like most people in your life don't get to. And yeah, I love book events for that. And then also there's meeting the readers, not just readers who've read your stuff, but new readers who are interested in your things, and you get to pitch your book and talk about it, and they're like, oh, that sounds amazing, and you're like, well, thank you. Yeah,
That
I
helps
like
too.
the attention.
Yeah, that helps a lot. And really, uh, now that I've done more events over the last year, and I've had people actually come back to uh, like I did the event last year, and they came back to the same event to buy my other books. Like that's a big thing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't expecting it. I was very grateful to have that happen, and uh, that's why this year I kind of have resolved to do a lot more of them. And
Mm-hmm.
right before we got on here, I was booking out my calendar as best I could, like trying to find every event in Florida that I could sign up to do, because it really is probably the most consistently motivating thing
Oh,
for me.
absolutely. Yes. It gives you a deadline.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you're thinking about giving up or taking a day off, or you don't feel like it, you're like, oh, but the readers, I have this event. I can't show up to the event without the next thing or the next book, or they're relying on me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I can disappoint myself all the time. That's easy. But disappoint them, never.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I know. I have been working on the third book finally, and I have some great fans that have been with me since like the day I launched the first book, uh, that I email with regularly, and uh, they keep asking very politely, because I'll tell them I'm doing this other thing. I have this other thing I'm working on. Ooh,
Yes.
can you beta read this other thing that I wrote? And it's like, oh yeah, great, absolutely. But when is the third book done? And so
Yes.
for them, if they're watching, I am working on it. I've gotten
Hmm.
3 chapters written in the last couple of days, so I'm actually able
Oh,
to put time into it.
that's good. 3 chapters in a few days is good.
I am fast. I will say that one thing that copywriting really helped me with was speed, and
Mm-hmm.
not just writing speed, but like speed to market, like speed to a quality level that's almost ready to publish.
Mm-hmm.
Because 10 years of doing that, you don't really have a choice. You kind of have to do the work quick, because you're limited by time, how much money you're able to make. And especially like I was doing it starting out, I was doing it dirt cheap
Mm-hmm.
prices on my copywriting. I had to write a lot to make any money, and you're also not feeding it through an editor before you submit it to your client, generally, unless you're, you know, banking enough to afford an editor on your own. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to get fast and you have to get pretty good at self editing as you write.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I want to say it only took me to finish, to write and finish and like get ready and publish the first two books in the series. I did that in 6 months. And that's all the more reason why everybody's like, it's been a year and 6 months. Where's the third one? Like, it
Mm-hmm.
was just, that was, if I have an unlimited amount of time in the day to just devote to writing fiction, then I can go pretty quick. But it is part of my New Year's resolution to return to being prolific because um, if anyone else out there who wants to be an indie author, best advice I ever got uh, about the business side of it, and I have a lot of advice that has come my way, is have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of books. Like your next book sells your last book, and it's it should be pretty obvious, but I can definitely say that proving it in the field has been 100% true. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when I just had the one book, I sold it pretty well, and then I had the second book, and all of a sudden the exponential growth was visible.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's I think it would be fairly impossible to do anything that gives you a non-trivial income with a single book. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see how anybody could do that anymore. So I know that if I want to ultimately um, just write full time and just do creative pursuits full time and not continue as a marketing consultant, that I have to write a lot more books. It's just not going to happen
Mm-hmm.
otherwise.
Well, we can take all the marketing advice we can here. Like it's consistently every author's least favorite aspect of writing is the marketing, because we're all starting out. We write our first book. We're all bright cheeked and like, I did it, and then you're like, oh, I have to market it forever now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
I would. I have.
it's
Oh, go ahead.
and just like it's tricky. I completely agree with you. And absolutely, if you want to make an income as an indie author, you have to keep consistently putting things out, or people kind of lose track of you, or they don't, and yeah. And then again, your old sales will increase with every new book release. Um, the people that I'm seeing do well are the people who consistently release new material,
Oh yeah.
unfortunately.
And
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that I have no complaints for somebody who's put out the only three real official books at this point. My
Hmm.
number of readers is actually quite good, and I'm happy about that. I'm grateful to everyone who reads,
Hmm.
and the I have floated the idea before of actually doing consulting for indie authors and marketing for indie authors, and it's something that every time I think about doing it, I come back to this idea that, you know, we're all cash strapped, like, because you kind of have to approach it that way. Because if you weren't trying to do this on a budget, I could give you the easy solution. It's just paid advertising. You can do really well with paid ads. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not a very difficult formula to figure out at that point. If you don't have that kind of money, then things get a lot more time consuming and complex. And at that point, I don't want to be charging an indie author almost as much as they would pay for paid ads to do the other stuff for them, because you're
Hmm.
either it's always a time or money thing, right? You're either
Yes,
yeah,
everything in life is your time or your money.
yep.
Yes.
And so if they wanted me to use my marketing experience to save them time, it's going to cost them probably more money than they want to spend. So it ends up being kind of
Well, you're
a
stuck. You're stuck
yeah. I can't
deciding what
really.
your time is worth, deciding what their time is worth, and how can you help them, and what can you do that'll be meaningful help for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, I split the difference at this point. And since I've been trying to actually do Patreon more, I figured
Mhm.
I will just do over time everything that I would do if someone was paying me, and I'll just do it on Patreon. And then that way, if somebody wants to see it for $5 a month or whatever, then that's accessible. You know, that's the solution I've come up with so far. is to just do it that way. Because at the end of the day, I really also don't want to pivot into being like an author marketing consultant, because I'm right back where I'm trying to get out of now. Because that's time then that I wouldn't be spending writing my own books.
Yes.
So as much as I think I would enjoy doing that, uh, it's counter to my long-term goals. So I have to keep that in mind.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. No, I'm honestly in the same boat. I'm doing the Tell Not show. It takes time out of my week that I could be writing for sure. But I started the show because I wanted to have a way to shine more light on other authors. Selfishly, I also get to meet other authors, and I have the best time getting to know you guys and to hear about your journeys and your advice and um, learn about your books. I can't tell you how long my TBR has grown meeting all these amazing authors who just getting to know them and their stories, you know. Anyway, but I believe it's something worth doing, and I think everyone has to decide how much of themselves can they set aside for this, you know. Um,
yeah, and the less time you have, the more discipline you have to cultivate. And
mhm.
that's one of the first things, like if I'm just talking to somebody at one of the book signings or something, because a lot of times you'll meet someone who has aspirations and they ask you kind of the basic questions about
Yeah.
how do you do it. And I pretty much have defaulted now to the answer of the number one thing that's going to matter is discipline more than anything else. Like if you can't get the words on the page, that's the biggest thing that's going to stop you. I mean, if you can get the words on the page, like literally, if you could crank out books, you almost wouldn't have to worry about marketing at the level of someone who can't,
Hmm.
because the algorithm currently on Amazon will help support your prolific writing, will game the algorithm for you, and you will have a much easier time selling your books.
That's good
So
to
yeah, if you can just write a lot, and I've seen indie authors, because I have a newsletter, and it has, like, I use Story Origin to do an
know.
author
Hmm.
spot thing in there and everything. So I see other indie authors through that quite a bit too, and I've met a few that, I mean, they really put out a new book like every 3 weeks, and they don't even look like they're edited sometimes, but man, they have readers. They have a lot of reviews on their books, and
That
if
would
you can,
be
yeah,
read a book that doesn't look like it's been edited. But like if you're a very good author, then or you have a particular readership who doesn't care, or if you find your people, then yeah, you're right. Just keep feeding them. So
and sometimes that's the key, is finding what your actual
mhm.
style and approach is, because one of the examples that always pops into my mind, he writes humor, like sci-fi humor mostly, and the fact that it looks like it was written on a phone with no editor ever reading it before it ever went to print, it makes it even funnier. Like, you couldn't try to write literary fiction. Well, I guess, like,
Okay, I could see humor working in
mhm,
that style because it gives you an idea of like it really puts you in the shoes of that person
yeah,
from
it's
their
great. And I even read a few of his books just because I before I promoted him on my newsletter, I kind of at least wanted to see what he'd written. And the first one, I was like, whoa, like, there is very little quality control on this. But I kept reading it,
Mhm.
and I laughed, and I thought it was funny. And then before I knew it, I was through the whole first book, and I was like, okay, so he can get away with it. Like this, sometimes that's what style is and uh, a lot of times that's what people will argue. That's what the true purpose of art is to push the limits of what you can get
Mhm.
away with, and that's somebody doing that.
Yeah. I remember in college reading a book that consistently broke a lot of grammar rules. And but it was a really good book. And I was really miffed because like I just spent 4 or 5 years being told these are the rules. You're not a good writer unless you follow the rules. And then I read this book and I'm like, there are no rules, are there? Like, it was
Oh
made
yeah,
up.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
the thing that you have to do is just be consistent.
That's, yeah. I would say that's pretty important, because there's a few things that I do all the time that break the rules of grammar, but I
Yeah.
do them all the time. I don't.
Style-wise,
Yeah, yeah.
consistent.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're touching on a lot of really important things there. If you want to write books, you have to get your butt in the chair and you have to write them, unfortunately. Only just thinking about them is really fun, but it's not going to get your books out.
And that's why I definitely reinforce that word discipline, not
Mhm.
motivation, not inspiration. Neither one of those things really matter all that much. They're kind of flights of fancy. It's you
They
have
help.
to force yourself to do it. Yeah.
Yes. They help, but they're not going to see you through. They are fair weather friends. Right. Well, can you tell me a little bit about your writing process? How do you go from like idea to finished draft?
Okay.
It sounds like you do things a little differently from your years of copywriting.
Yeah, I would say the method I developed over the years, I just carried it over into the fiction. And usually, what I would do is, if I was writing an article for a company, and a lot of times I would know nothing about what they're, and I'd have to research it.
Hmm.
Still do with a lot of my articles. I would just go and do the research and do like a line by line outline. I need to make a point about this here. I need to explain what this is here, and it would just be. And then I would go back and fill that out, and that
Hmm.
would be kind of my process. I still do that quite a bit with fiction. So like, it does depend on what I'm writing. Like I'm working on something, several things right now all at once, and like one of them is a short story that's in universe for these books, and I'm just kind of writing it as I go. There really is no outline to that. In my head, I know what needs to happen, and that's the
Hmm.
outline. But for the third book of Into the Beanstalks series,
Hmm.
there is a lot of world building I have to keep up with. There's a lot of things I know need to be explained, or threads that need to be pulled by the end of the third book. So I pretty much went through. I put down how many chapters I want to have by the end of the book, and that might be a really weird way to do it. But I know how much I typically write in a chapter, word count wise, and that would translate to like 32 chapters if I want it to be this word count length. And then with each one of those chapters, I kind of figured out what should happen, and then inside each one of those, a few sentences of specific detail. Like by the end of that chapter, I know he needs to say this thing because
Hmm.
later it needs to come up, and then
Yeah.
I
Some
just go,
plot points need to fall at these chapters. This, yeah, the beats. It
yeah,
sounds like you spread out the beats.
pretty much, yeah, and that everything else after that is sort of. I like to be free to let every scene unfold. Now
Hmm.
with the first book, I let the whole book unfold. There was almost I had one central premise that I cared about making sure hit, and that was the beanstalk related part of the story. Everything else was just I'm going to throw these people in this room. Let's see what they do. I'm going to put her on this street. Let's see what happens. And I do like to write that way because I feel like it's a lot more organic for
Hmm.
me to say, um, like the chapter I was writing today, the only note that was in there was they, the two characters need to walk into this room. This person will be there.
Hmm.
They need to talk about this, this, and this, and then they leave. And that conversation, ended up being 1,700 words because as they're talking, they bring up other things that I
Yeah.
didn't have planned. And that's where the dialogue based organic world building for me tends to come out, and I really like to do a lot of that. Like people tend to say that my books are not info dumps, and I that's very deliberate. But also at the same time, I don't feel compelled to do a lot of info dumping because I like characters to talk about the world, and that's where the world building comes into the story.
Hmm.
And so I know that there are hundreds of pages of things I've written about the world that exists here, and I I am lucky that I have the memory, I guess, or the recall ability that I don't need to have it all written down in front of me to know, oh, this would be a good point for them to just, casually mention that this corporation owns this thing because that's kind of cool if the readers know that.
Hmm.
But I would never sit there and write a paragraph that said the history of this corporation's ownership of some
Mm-hmm.
product. You know what I mean? And so letting
Yeah.
it unfold organically is key to what I do.
Oftentimes, like, I'll reach a later point. I'll go, hey, go back and put this in. This thing that they're referencing, go back and like,
Yeah, yeah,
so, because it did unfold earlier. Now it's unfolding, and I'm like, oh, I have to really emphasize that when I go back again and, make sure they say this specifically. So that way I'm laying down the right foreshadowing. And that's great because then it looks like I had it planned out the whole time.
yeah. And a lot of it is trickery too. I mean, that's where a lot of the talent over, and that's why I say you. Another great thing about writing a lot is that you will just get better. You will
Mm-hmm.
get to the point where all of this comes so naturally that your speed naturally improves and your quality
Mm-hmm.
naturally improves. But that only happens if you write a lot, and like
Yes.
years and years, not the same book. Like I've met people that have been working on their same first novel for 5 years, and
Oh, yes. I feel
you
so bad for them
yeah,
because
you don't want to go down that road. You
no.
really don't. And it's so much better. The best thing that you will get is feedback from readers. So if nobody's reading your work, you're not getting better. You have to put stuff out there. Uh, and that doesn't necessarily mean publishing it, of course, if you're not ready or if it's not
Oh,
ready. But
yes. Get
if
a
no,
group, get some friends, get some beta readers, post it somewhere. Yeah, there's
yeah,
absolutely so many ways to get feedback.
yeah. I always advocate for the free, if it's still free, I'm pretty sure QT Critique,
Mm-hmm.
which is was created by Query Tracker back in the days when I used to care about querying for agents. I don't know. But they did have this free. They do have a free product where you can go on and post chapters of your story, and people critique it. It's like a writers group online that you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there. It's real easy to use. There's no reason not to use it. Not all of the critiques are useful, of course, but most of them are. And
Mm-hmm.
so, even if that's all you have access to, then that's a great way to make sure that as you're writing a lot to get better, you're reinforcing the right habits and
Mm-hmm.
learning as you're
Oh,
doing it.
yes. Even someone who isn't necessarily giving you the best advice, they will hit on something you can use. I have several different friends. One friend is really good at picking up where I'm missing on description and, you know, world building, and another who will pick up on emotions. She's like, hey, this person isn't showing enough emotion here, or this person should be devastated, or, and then I have another friend who's really, really good at just like grammar. She'll pick out grammar issues all over. So, like, every person gives me like a different perspective on my own story. And I value all three of them quite a lot because between them, we make one functional person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what you're shooting for. Yeah, and once you get beta readers that are like just readers that like your work
Yeah.
that are willing to read it for, to help you out,
Yeah.
that's great too.
Even if they say, I liked it, that's hopeful.
Yeah, and the yeah, I now that I think about it, I actually have a few of my loyal beta reader fans that they do specialize. I really can count on them for very specific things, and I don't know if I really picked that out before, but it is good to have as many as possible because they are going to catch different things.
Mm-hmm. I'm really enjoying this conversation quite a lot. I was like, oh, whatever, questions. Keep going.
Yeah, good. I have a tendency to go off track a little bit just because I don't know. I don't know why. I think
I'm really
some may
enjoying
call it
quite a
some may
lot.
call it rambling.
We're authors. We love words. Do you have a favorite author and what's something that they do really well?
I don't.
Okay.
Uh, I'm really bad at answering favorites questions.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that
just
makes sense.
yeah, and I don't know if it's just because I like so many things that it's hard to pick one, or if it's because my choices would probably change month over month.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say influence wise,
Okay, perfect.
yes. And this is funny. This is why it's like hard to name him as a favorite. Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like a lot of his books. I don't even really read horror, but
Mm-hmm.
his Dark Tower series,
Mm-hmm.
starting when I finally broke down and read The Gunslinger, it helped propel me down that road of, ooh, I kind of want to write again. And it was really because The Gunslinger was so weird that I was impressed by just how creative it was. It wasn't like anything I'd seen or read, and I wanted to do that. Like
Mhm.
I saw that and I was like, I want to get to the point where I'm just creating an entire universe
Mhm.
where it defies expectation.
Yes.
It doesn't slot into a genre really. And that was one of the things that really pushed me back into writing. And to some degree early on, like American Gods, so Neil Gaiman, like that kind of, I was like, okay, that's also cool. That's like a unique take on something. So that inspired the novella I wrote a long time ago, uh, in many ways.
Mhm.
And more recently, um, Jeff Vandermeer, the Southern Reach books like Annihilation and
Mhm.
Absolution and the other ones, I can't remember. But those kind of, I guess you could say, because I don't read a lot of fiction.
Mhm.
And those are the ones I most recently read that were not another indie author's book, because I will stop and read those when I buy them or trade
Yes.
them or whatever. But I read those and I kind of felt rejuvenated by that series. Um, and it did remind me how much I like that genre of it's like roadside picnic. I don't. It probably has a genre name, but I don't know what it is. But you've got your um, mysterious zone that the characters are going into, where they're trying to recover artifacts or figure out what's
Mhm.
going on. But I really like stories like that, and it reminded me how much I like those types of stories. So I went back and I read Roadside Picnic again, and that then made me kind of go off on a tangent where I started writing Tales from the Fringe, which is on my Patreon, and like just it's out there for anybody. I think it's also on my blog on my website, but it ended up being almost a novel length book that I wrote just a chapter a day just to
Mhm.
do it and see how far I would go with it. And that goes into that genre. So sometimes I will just see something and be like, I really like that. I want to do that. And I'll go
Mhm.
off of whatever I should be doing and I'll go do it. And so that style of writing, um, I guess it's more of an author impact. I mean, or
Yeah.
less of an author, more of a style. But yeah, that would be my answer to that one.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. It sounds like not only were they an influence and inspiration, but in a sense, they gave you permission to do what you wanted. You're like again, there's no rules. They're made up. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah,
I don't have to stick to one genre. I can do weird stuff. I can, it takes off all of the fences. They're gone. The walls there are gone. You can do whatever you want.
yeah. One,
But yes, I love books that are inspiring. Even if you like, it's funny because the things that you take away and write really have nothing to do with where you got those seeds from. But at the same time, you did take those seeds and they grew something different and better. Not
yeah,
better, but like different and the way you do it.
yeah. Like all creation is synthesis. It's taking
Yes.
things and mashing them together in a new way, and that's why I don't read a lot of fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction, because I like to see things in reality that are sometimes unusual or interesting, and then figure out how I can combine them into fiction to make something new
Oh,
there.
yeah. Inspiration is everywhere.
And I mean, I guess that's the benefit of writing kind of semi near future cyberpunk science fiction is that I can look at what's actually happening now, today, and have a lot of fuel to extrapolate for my stories because everything is very relevant to the Hope Cyberpunk universe, the working name for the universe in which these novels and the short stories exist. Um, so much parallel to almost a crazy extent because I wrote Into the Beanstalk a year before a lot of these things really started happening and hitting the news. And whether by sheer luck or just following the stuff a lot in technology and science, and it just implanted it all into my brain, and I kind of predicted the right path. But nearly everything that is in the books is actually happening now. I mean, you've got the basic premise of there being a technocracy, like purpose-built society and cities that were founded by tech billionaires. Like they are building those. It's, I mean, if you look up, I actually need to write an article soon about this, but like Prospera, Praxis Nation. I mean, these things are actual real um,
Hmm.
experiments, social experiments that mirror what I wrote about in my cyberpunk novels. And
Hmm.
so some people who have read them have said they are very much less, they're not as much fiction as they are futurism, because they
Yeah.
are very accurately portraying the trajectory of
Hmm.
what we're all doing.
Oh yeah, you have this background of research, and yeah, I bet that that lends a lot of realism to your books. Perhaps realism your readers might not always. They're like, "What? This part's real?"
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the future is kind of big, and there's so much going on, and technology is really uh, it's hard to say what direction that it's taking us in.
Hmm.
But as a writer, I think that's so very valuable that you are doing all of this research to then put into your books. Yeah.
Thankfully, I find that part fun
Hmm.
because, like I said, I before I started writing Into the Beanstalk, I had just this hobby of watching a lot of YouTube videos about quantum physics, and I
Hmm.
would read a lot about emergent technology, and I work in information technology. And so I had a lot of raw material to draw from. And whenever I would say, I'd be writing something and I'd be like, okay, so I want to have big flying cargo airships because they're cool. And
Hmm.
cyberpunk usually has them. It's part of the aesthetic. I would say I can't write that in the story until I can explain how they work. Like I
Hmm.
just can't. There's no way, because I don't want to break the at least plausible futurism of my universe with
Yeah.
something that's just stupid.
Yeah.
And so I would spend 2 hours researching, okay, if you combine this vectored thrust technology that they're working on in Japan right now with, vacuum gravity buoyancy, like it could work maybe just enough that I can write it in the book and say that there is just this little margin where in 100 years we figured out how to close that gap.
Hmm.
I can't explain how we got the 10% of the rest of the way there, but the future explains it. We just did stuff better. We were more efficient. We had more efficient materials or energy sources or whatever. But I got
Yeah.
to at least get it 90% to reality.
Hmm. That is kind of a funny, very human thing to do, I think, of seeing things that aren't possible and thinking like, yeah, yeah, give us enough time, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And so far, I don't think there's anything I put in the books that I don't think we will have in 100 years. Probably a lot sooner, honestly. But
Hmm.
in 100 years, we'll definitely have everything that's in the books.
That's exciting. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a favorite part of writing?
Uh, Finishing
That's a good place to be.
the, I guess the favorite part would be, okay, if we're talking about kind of temporal senses, then in the middle, like after I've kind of spooled up, I've got going, I'm in the middle of a chapter or the day's work, and I've hit a stride. That's when
Hmm.
it's really fun. Worst part is when you first go to start writing for me. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah, when I every day when I sit down and I'm like, okay, this is my time to write. I'm now being disciplined like I should be. That's the hardest. It's like getting going from zero. Uh, but once I'm going, it's that flow state in the middle that's great. And then a lot of times the end, unless it's the end of the book, it's kind of like you're winding down. And you start thinking about, oh man, I have so much to write tomorrow, and that euphoria starts to drain away. I would say that right in the middle, you know, when you're going for it, that's great.
The flow state is a really fantastic place to be.
Hmm. I mean, it's probably why a lot of people write. It's meditative, it's,
It,
if I
yeah.
had to, yeah, you start it for whatever reason, but I think the reason why people stick with it, why people find solace in it and they want to keep going back to it despite how hard it is because it's like why people jog or run marathons.
Yes.
It's struggle, it's miserable, it's painful, but while they're doing it during that short period of time that they're in that state, it's great. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like what writing is for, I would guess, most people who do
I
it.
love that analogy so much. It's very apt. Um, yes, dragging yourself to the computer, having the discipline to sit down, like getting started and fighting that blank page. But then you hit your stride and it's coming to you and you're channeling it. And there's something about the act of creation. And again, a lot of people, it's therapeutic as well. I laugh often, like sometimes my characters sort of turn around and look at me and go, "Are you working through something right now? Because you're making us unnecessarily miserable." And the answer is right there. And yet
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm working through something. But oftentimes I only see it when my characters are experiencing it and they are become a mirror for me. So yeah, those little moments of just the therapy and the getting it out there and everything, that's wonderful. But yeah, but then there is so much hard work to it. The finishing of the book, the marketing of the book, the editing the book, the like all of
Yeah,
that.
I would definitely say another reason to practice a lot and get to a point where your first draft is really clean
Hmm.
is because if you're like me and you don't like editing, you have to do so much less of it if your first draft is really smooth and doesn't need a lot of work. And
Hmm.
so I would hate editing if I was the type of writer that had to go back to a mess in chapter one and like fix everything. That would
Hmm.
be the worst thing ever. But
I'm of a similar mind. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, my method with that is really I will typically go back and read what I wrote yesterday before I start writing my work for today.
Hmm.
And as I'm
Oh
reading
yeah,
yesterday's work, I fix stuff.
I
And
do
by
that too. I
yeah,
sort of use it as a ramp, like a jump
mhm.
off point to propel me into the next chapter instead of just starting with blank. Yeah.
Yeah,
And yes, and then the editing as you go, it just gets you into that state faster.
yeah. I don't actually think I could write if I didn't do it that way because I'll have forgotten what I wrote yesterday completely if I don't go back and read it. But yeah, that's I guess that's another tip. Everybody has their own method and style, and the only thing that makes one better than the other is just whatever works for you.
Hmm.
And so, it, trying everything until you find what really works for you is definitely key to getting there.
Okay, what would you say has been your most significant writing victory so far?
I would say just a lot of things tied up with Into the Beanstalk are a victory in my mind. I think just everything that's happened with that book since I've written it and published it.
I absolutely agree. Getting that first book out is the first mountaintop that you climb, that you summit, and it feels amazing.
Yeah, and really, I couldn't have asked for it to work out better. Probably. I mean, it's just it won a couple of awards. Great, awesome. I mean, that's very validating. Even if they don't necessarily propel you into any kind of stardom, because they didn't land me on any bestseller list, but it is very validating to go through some of the awards that are actually rigorous, and that multiple people are reading them, and they
Mm-hmm.
have to get through these
And they
thresholds to
chose
win.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was great. Um, the the reader's reception of the book was great. It was very inspiring and kept me going. That so many people liked it. That, of course, that's huge because I didn't know. I really didn't know when I published it how it would be received, and then like being discovered by Arcane Fiction, who I'm still working with to do the audio drama, and that was just they found the book, they liked it, and wanted to work with me on producing it into another adaptation, and that's awesome. And it just seemed like there was a lot of good fortune tied to that book,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so I consider it all something that I'm really grateful for, and I feel very good about, and very different than the first time I tried to do this, which, I told you that I did the novella. I even did like a book signing at a car dealership with that book. And I think it's still on Amazon. I decided to pop it back up there, just for fun. But the next attempt of writing a real full-length novel, it was like 350 pages. It was a big deal for me because that's the most I'd ever written in one piece of work. And I put that out there, and the first and only review it got was like a 1-star review that just said rubbish.
Oh no.
And that was like a week after I published it to Amazon, and I didn't go anywhere with it. It didn't make me feel like it was, riding a trajectory to success, and that made me give up for a while, I think. And not really because I felt like it was a huge kick to my ego, though it was. It really made me feel like I wasn't ready. Like it just wasn't time.
Yeah.
And so the victory of Into the Beanstalk was the complete opposite.
But you're ready now. Yes.
Yeah, it came out and I said, now's the time. Like, this is working. Now is when I'm supposed to do this. I feel like the universe has given me permission to succeed. So let's keep going. You know what I mean?
I love that story. It's great. No, I'm laughing because I've experienced a similar thing. Hobby writing for years, didn't think anything of it, didn't really share it with very many people. It was mostly for me. And it wasn't until I thought of this one character who just wouldn't shut up. I started writing his story and I'm like, oh, this is actually good. I think this is it. This is it. I found the story I want to tell,
That's part of it too, is maybe that wasn't the character, the world, the story that I should have been pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could have maybe hammered away at that, tried to fix it, tried to make it better. But I really think it was meant to be a learning experience, not a successful first novel.
Yes. Well, it's valuable. It's harsh. It's hard. It's painful. But learning experiences are valuable.
You get a lot of them. Accrue many as you're learning to write, as you're pursuing an authorship career of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, be diligent in your collecting of learning experiences and mistakes. I mean, really, it's how you get better.
Yep. Keep going. Keep going. Keep growing. Awesome. Well, do you have a copy of your book handy? You want to show off the cover and maybe tell everyone about your books?
So that's the cover behind me there on the wall too. And this is the first book I keep talking about. So this is Into the Beanstalk. And that is available on my website, signed copies, and ebook format as well, and Amazon, probably other places too, because of pushing it out through draft to digital. But I'm trying to get as much of my stuff on my website and not, like many, I'm trying to break the tether with Amazon because that's just such a tenuous relationship to have. And none of us know how that's going to play out in the long run. A lot of the big name authors, like TradPub authors who were smart enough to maintain their ebook distribution rights, they're seeing how rough Amazon is and how much they control your exposure and things. So in other words, like, I'm just trying to get as much traffic as I can to my website and giving people better deals on the books through me versus through Amazon.
Yes, that's a good strategy.
The other thing I'm doing, and this is experimental, but the highest tier on my Patreon, you get all of the books I write in perpetuity for free in ebook versions. I just figured, why not? So I have the ebook, EPUBs, and PDF versions on Patreon. And if you're a subscriber at that tier, then you can just download them all you want. And anytime I publish a new book or short story, I'll put it there.
On the list, yeah. It's the J. Paul Road Library.
Yeah. I think things are going to start going that direction. I mean, this is because I do also study the publishing industry and entertainment and media in general. Things are changing in such a way that I don't see that the way Amazon is operating now being tenable for much longer.
Mm,
There's discoverability issues. There's a lot of problems with their distribution method, and then they're just also not super fair to the authors.
they are not. They are
So
absolutely not fair to the authors.
yeah, I'm kind of envisioning something where what typically happens when in this like market life cycle stage, where you have your big box retailer, and then they've pushed down everybody else, they've flattened the landscape, and now what pushes them away is the boutiques. So you typically end up having boutique retailers that are a better user experience for the customer. And I
Mhm.
think that it's almost like there'll be indie bookstores online, like small corner shop bookstores online, that may start pushing back against Amazon and big retailers. And I would imagine it would probably be through curation of titles, because with how easy it is to publish to Amazon, there's what 8,000 books a day going to Amazon,
Yeah, yeah.
and
But it's a lot of AI written stuff now as well, or it can be low content stuff.
yep.
But yeah, no, but there's a lot of real authors who are just trying, you know?
And what I would like to see is, like, let's say that I or somebody, probably not me, starts a cyberpunk indie bookstore online, and it's all curated stuff. It's vetted. It's not
Yes,
AI
I
written.
read this and it was good, I promise. Like, it's
Yeah,
been edited, it's been seen, it's yeah.
and then yeah, it would take time to build that up, and people would have to shift their buying behaviors to actually think to go there instead of Amazon. But over time, I think something like that will likely help the independent press quite a bit, and we're seeing a lot of that with other forms of media too, because there's just, and something I talk and write about all the time, is just this general collapse of the quality of corporatized media, and
Mhm.
stuff coming out of Hollywood, AAA games, trad pub books. It's not good. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the content's generally losing quality, and their audience's loyalty is reflected in that, and a
Mhm.
lot of them are losing money, and something has to step in and fix that. And what we're seeing in a lot of the other channels, like with streaming movies and shows, is it's independent uh, studios, small studios, stepping in and actually giving people what they want. And
Mhm.
I think that's what's happening with why indie authors are actually seeing kind of a renaissance. It's because the big publishing houses aren't, in many cases, putting out what people want to read.
Mhm.
And so through uh, necessity, people are looking to independent authors, and that's great. But it's also a reason to, if you want to be an indie author, if you're not trying to go get an agent, get a publishing contract, it's a good
Mhm.
reason to maintain true to what you want to write, and don't chase
Yes.
the trends, and
Yes.
don't ingest the playbook, because you'll end up just producing the same stuff people are running from right now.
Yes. Yes. I completely agree. Unfortunately, I do have to I do have to end this,
Oh,
but I got to get going. But it has been truly a pleasure getting to know you. I'm so glad you're able to make it onto the show tonight.
yes,
Uh,
me too.
and you are actually my season finale for this season 6. So
Awesome.
awesome. All right. Oh, really quick though. I'll switch this around. Where can people find you online? What's your website? And
jpaulrowe.com. So
keeping it
just like it's
easy.
written there. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where I would go. You could see all my stuff there, or links to all my stuff there.
Perfect. Perfect. All right.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been really fun. And
Awesome. Awesome. And thanks to everyone listening along with us, and join us for next season. And remember, there is always more than one way up a mountain. To be on our show, find us on social media at The Tell Not Show, or email us at thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thanks.